So I was surprised that he would even pull out this bag and, well, frankly, not hide it from me. And he kind of seemed to suggest that we should do it together. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I just got here. I want to see you. I want to spend time with you. It was the exact opposite of what I expected, what I wanted. And it just seemed delusional at the time to me that he would even suggest this to be something that I could participate in with him. If you had been through what I had been through at that point, it's crazy. And at some point, he drinks in front of me. At first, I think it was like a Malbec or a wine or something. And I remember we hadn't, like, it kind of started an argument. And that was upstairs in that room that we just looked at a picture of, by the sunflowers. That's more or less where we were standing, just closer to the kitchen. And we get in an argument, and I shove past him, just stomp off. And he grabs me. We have an argument about me walking away, and am I walking out of this? And in my head, I was like, I actually wasn't thinking of leaving yet, but that would later be going through my mind. We had a brief interaction, and I don't remember the exact sequence of things. I wish I did. I have a lot of flashes. It gets a little bit more confusing from my ability to recall everything in a linear way a little later on as things got crazier. But for this part, the first night, what I distinctly remember is at one point, I don't think I had gotten very far, or maybe I came back into the room, but when he shoved me, I went flying across these parakeet floors. I mean, just skidding across these floors. And I remember thinking it just looked so easy for him to throw me around like that, I just slid, screeching my skin against this, like, beautiful wooden floor. And we had another argument that was a spin-off from that. It was just kind of this on-off sort of thing that I remember eventually in this interaction, he shoves me up against the fridge. He has me by the throat, and he just was holding me there by my throat. And I wondered if it was the drugs. I wondered if it was him. It hadn't, in my recollection, hadn't been that long. He has me up against the throat. He's kind of bashing me against the wall next to the fridge. We're kind of moving in that area. And at some point, I'm in his face. And I don't know if he had let go of my neck or loosened my grip, but I remember slapping him across the face, screaming at him. He's screaming at me. I got my hand free when he tried to grab me when I walked off. I stormed off. I slammed the door upstairs. I don't know if it was in that instance or if it was in a later one that I eventually barricaded the door. It wouldn't stop him from coming in. He could come in the other doors. There's there's a back door, there's patio, but at least I'd hear it. And this is March 2015. By this time, I'm being medicated by his doctor. He's giving me anti-anxiety meds, giving me, had already tried to give me antidepressants. They didn't work for obvious reasons, I hope. I wasn't sleeping. I had insomnia. I'd wake up with panic attacks. I needed to sleep, but my ability to do so was really, really compromised at this point. And I kept thinking that I just wanted to hear him or know if he came in so I could be aware, so I could be ready for what was going to come in with him. And at some point I go back downstairs. I don't really know at what point I gave up and stayed behind my barricaded door, but I managed to go to sleep. I took some sleeping pills. I woke up, and when I came downstairs, he was still up. He confirmed when I asked him that he had not slept. He had not eaten, so I tried to get him to eat. We get in an argument. He was accusing me of Eddie Redmayne, and by this point, he thought I was working with Billy Bob Thornton on the movie I had just shot, but I had already worked with him a year earlier. But he was very upset about him and the gentleman that invited me to a concert in London. You know, my co-star, he was upset about these people, even though I had done that movie a year prior.
Who was that?
It was Billy Bob Thornton, Jim Sturgis, and Eddie Redmayne that he was upset about.
And let me just stop you for a moment. Have you seen Mr. Depp take any drugs by this point?
Oh, yeah. Sorry if I left that out. That when we had the argument about the MDMA, he suggested to me that it wasn't on the no-fly list, like it wasn't on the no list. That was his that was his defense. Like, this isn't the, you didn't say I couldn't have this. And you know, over and over again, Johnny told me I wasn't the reason he was getting sober, but I was the reason he was staying sober. I had saved his life and all this stuff. I wasn't like, it wasn't my job to police him, but I kind of ended up being in that situation, it seemed like, in his mind, you know, when he would express that to me. So he took a handful of pills, and I didn't count how many, but when I came back downstairs, I did the math on the amount that was left, and I think it was either 8 or 10, I can't recall as I sit here now, either 8 or 10 pills of MDMA.
That he had taken or that were left?
I don't know. I remember we had a conversation about the amount that he took. So I remember saying, you
Objection,
took all
hearsay.
Okay, I'll sustain the objection. Okay.
There were only a few left in the bag, so I think it was what he took. And I said, Johnny,
Objection, hearsay.
He confirmed that he took that amount and that he could take that amount.
And what amount?
At this point, there were 10. He had taken 10, 8 or 10. I can't recall.
And when you say at this point, is that the first night? Is that the second day?
This is the second day. This is after I've already fallen asleep for the night in the room upstairs. Come back downstairs. He was still awake.
Okay. Please continue with that second day.
He was accusing me of being mean to his sister. He was accusing me of not liking his sister. Something about the wedding. I was trying to put out that fire, as you will. I was trying to say, no. First of all, I'm not filming with Billy Bob. No, I wasn't filming with Jim Sturgis. Yes, I filmed with Eddie Redmayne, but he was a lovely gentleman.
Objection, Honor, hearsay.
Let's not offer to prove the truth of the matter.
Overruled.
Thank you.
And then when it came up with his sister, he was accusing me of kind of having this animosity with Christy. I tried to defend myself, explaining why her and I had kind of become cold to one another. I don't know how else to describe it, because we never had any sort of direct interaction that was negative. We never had any sort of confrontation or anything, but I did my best to explain to him what I could answer to that accusation. And at one point he, I mentioned that, well, I can't say what I mentioned. He, as a result of that phone call, picks up the phone and calls his agent. I don't know why, still to this day. He calls a few people. I don't know who was on the other line. I just heard his side of it, and he's screaming at them. I got a sense that it was money, that he felt people had been stealing money from him, and that the studio had been ripping him off, and that he was calling himself like a whore, or he had been whored out. He seemed like he was upset, but I did not, at this point, this is maybe early evening, it was before the sun went down on the second day. I remember he took the phone at one point and called my divorce attorney. I had, at some point prior to this, got a divorce attorney, or not a divorce attorney, a domestic relations attorney to do a post-nup, because we got married in February, and there was never any mention or talk from Johnny about a prenup, but I had had interactions with his sister, and so I thought, okay, I'll get a lawyer and let's do a post-nup. When Johnny found out about that, or when I reminded him of that in Australia, he went outside and called my divorce attorney and fired her and said the only way out of this was death. Again. And I heard that already at this point, March 2015, probably 25 times. So he's screaming at her. He calls his agents. I hear him talking incoherently, screaming incoherently at my lawyer and his agent. He comes back inside, and I genuinely didn't know if he was still mad at me or if it was about me at all. I didn't know. It didn't seem like it was connected to reality at all. At some point shortly after that, I have been saying to Johnny, you need to sleep. Let's eat some dinner, baby. Let's relax. Please, like, calm down. In my head, I was thinking that it would genuinely change if he just got some sleep. He needed to sleep it off. He needed to come down off the drugs. Clearly, the combination of what he had taken pill-wise with whatever else he was hiding from me was not good. I had recognized that sort of delusion. I had recognized that sort of unattached to reality rage. I had recognized the patterns of those kind of loops where he's yelling about things that aren't even being discussed or talked about. I knew already that he just needed to sleep it off, clean up, sober up. And I thought we could. I remember I went to the fridge. I got out the steaks so that they would be ready to cook. And I got out some of the food I was going to put together for dinner. I went upstairs. I don't know if I came back down in my nightgown at that point or if that was shortly after, but the next thing I remember is coming downstairs and looking for him. We had an interaction that I can't really describe. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. He was just belligerent, throwing things, screaming at me. And I realized I was back on the chopping block. I realized it was back, I realized that the arrows were pointed at me again. And I tried to defend myself. I was explaining, trying to say that.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
It was not for to prove the truth of the matter. She hasn't even said it yet, but try not to say what you're saying unless it needs it for context or something. Try to say what he's saying.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay.
He was just belligerent. I don't know how to describe to you because it wasn't making sense. It wasn't making sense. I don't know how. I don't know how the immediate next string of the next part of the violence actually even initiated, but again, he has me up against the wall, and I remember this time he slams me up against the wall hard. I mean, I hit my head hard. And this is a wall next to I say kitchenette, but it's more of a bar. I remember there were these cooling fridges, and I remember kind of being slammed up against those. I remember pushing him off of me. I remember the name calling, the whore, the slut, the fat ass. I remember a lot of name calling. I said...
Had he been drinking by this time?
He was drinking...
Calls for speculation and leading.
I'll sustain is deleting.
What, if any, drinks had you observed Mr. Depp have by this time?
Well, I had already seen him drink right in front of me. He took a big swig out of a wine bottle upstairs right in front of me as in a gesture of like looked right at me and took a big swig out of it as a, you know, like a show for, like, you know, did it right in my face to make a point. And then when I came downstairs, he was drinking from the bottle. I don't know what kind of liquor. I remember there was another bottle open, and I was wondering why he was drinking both. But at some point, he had me up against the wall next to the cooling fridges, and I remember slamming my head up against the thing. He had me by the neck, squeezing my neck, and it got really nasty. It went from like, oh, no one likes you, no one likes me, everyone warned me about you. That's what it was. He started to tell me that everyone had warned him about me, and that he wished he had never married me, wish he had never met me. No one liked me. You know, it sounds childish, but I remember feeling really hurt. And then at some point, I shoved him hard to get him off me. And he shoved me back, and he said, "Do you want to go, little girl?" I couldn't, as I sit here today, tell you if that happened before he choked me up against the wall, but at some point, I am in a struggle with him where I'm holding his shirt lapel, and he kind of just flings me, for lack of a better way to describe it, throws me across the room. I land on a games table. It's like a ping pong table. And I don't know if I was holding on to him or if he pursued me separate, but he gets on top of me on the games table and is just whacking me in the face, like repetitive. We struggle on the games table. I don't know how we get up. I don't know if he pulls me up. I wish I could tell you, but we were in this struggle down in this games room by the bar. And we had this conversation about the drinking, or argument about the drinking, and he holds up this bottle to me, and you know, I'm saying, did you drink this whole thing? Something stupid, focusing on this detail, and he is telling me that I can't control him anymore, and that if I really wanted to try, take it. And then he's like taunting me to take the bottle from him. If I really want him to stop, why don't I take it from him? Go on. Kept saying, "Go on," and kind of gesturing with the bottle towards me. And like he does that 2 or 3 times. I reach for it, he'd revoke it, kind of laugh at me. And he's holding out the bottle. I think like maybe the 3rd time or so I get a hold of it. I pick it up and I slam it down on the ground right in between us. There's a tile floor, a white tile floor. And I smashed the bottle on the floor. And that really set him off. So stupid. Sorry. It was like a light bulb switch went off. And he starts screaming. I don't know if he backhanded me or hit me normally. I don't really recall, but I remember it sent me down to the ground. I remember by the time I picked myself off the floor, I stand up. He's got a bottle in his hand, and he threw it at me. It missed, thankfully, but I kind of pulled myself back into the bar area. I don't know how much time passed, but at some point he had a broken bottle up against my face, neck area by my jawline, and he told me he'd carve up my face. I don't know at what point in the evening. I couldn't tell you what sequence-wise when that happened, but it was terrifying. It wasn't the first time he said that to me. He said that to me on the plane as well. But this time he was holding a broken bottle to me. I honestly don't remember if I threw anything in his direction. I don't think I did. I just remember him having me by the nightgown. I remember him flailing me, throwing me around. I'm flailing. This is after there were some bottles broken on the floor. I think this is actually after, again, forgive me, I wish I could remember the sequence, but it's flashes. He's throwing these bottles at me. I remember retreating. There were also cans, like soda cans, beer or soda cans, and they're coming at me one after the other, and I keep pulling myself into the bar area. There's a bar behind me in like I don't know, like an L shape. He's standing in the only way you can exit, so I'm kind of trapped in front of this sink, surrounded by bar on 3 sides with him in front of me-ish, kind of front off to the left, and he's throwing these bottles one after the other, and I can feel glass breaking behind me. I remember feeling one of them go by my head really fast. I mean, a real velocity. I remember being terrified. I remember I couldn't move. I couldn't go anywhere. I eventually, I don't know, he ran out of things to throw. I think that's how I moved myself towards the exit. And I believe that's most likely when we got kind of in this struggle by the bar area, because I remember my feet slipping on the tile as he was slamming me from the wall to the countertops. At one point, he has me up against the wall, and he's punching the wall. He had my, nightgown, and it kind of ripped it off my chest. I remember at one point he's teasing me, taunting me that he has my breasts in his hand. My nightgown came completely off. It was ripped off of me. So I was naked, and I'm slipping around on this tile and trying to get my footing. And I remember slipping on this tile. Glass was underneath me, and I remember just trying to get my footing. I felt really destabilized and felt really vulnerable. I'm naked, and he's flinging me around, and at some point, I'm up against the wall, and he's screaming at me that he fucking hates me, that I ruined his life. I remember I ruined his life over and over. And he starts punching the wall next to my head, holding me by the neck. I get free from him. I kind of step back from him, and it's like his energy shifted to the phone. There's a wall-mounted phone on the wall next to where my head was, and he went from punching the wall to like realizing there was a phone there, and he picked up the phone and he's screaming. He's like at the top of his lungs, screaming, "I fucking hate you! I fucking hate you! You ruined my fucking life!" And screaming at the top of his lungs, he picks up the phone and starts bashing the phone against the wall where I was just being held. And I remember kind of having some distance on what was happening and watching him do this. And it was like his energy had shifted, and I was that phone all of a sudden. And he was just over and over again smashing this phone into the wall, over and over again, screaming at me. And I was watching the phone every single time he pulled his hand back. It was just breaking into pieces. I remember thinking this phone is disappearing, was smashing it to smithereens, just going into the wall. And at some point, he's on top of no phone, but screaming the same thing. I fucking hate you. You ruined my fucking life. I'm on the countertop. It had me by the neck. And he felt like he was on top of me. And I'm looking at him in his eyes. And I don't see him anymore. I don't see him anymore. It wasn't him. It was black. I've never been so scared in my life. It was black. I couldn't see him. And he was looking at me, and I was trying to get through to him. I was trying to say to him in some way that it was me. I was trying to get through to Johnny. And I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him at all. And my head was bashing against the back of the bar, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember trying to get up, and I was slipping on the glass. My feet were slipping. My arms were slipping on the countertops. And I remember just trying to get up so I could breathe, so I could tell him that he was really hurting me. I didn't think he knew what he was doing. I don't know how... Sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't breathe. Please. I don't. Please, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get through to him. I couldn't get up. I couldn't get up. And I don't know how that ended. I don't know how. I don't know what happened next. I don't understand this. God, the next thing I remember, I always been over backwards on the bar, meaning my chest was up. I was staring at the blue lights, and my chest was on this. My back was on the countertops, and I thought he was punching me. I thought he was. I'm sorry. He was. I felt this pressure. On my pubic bone. He thought he was punching me. I just saw his arm. I could feel his arm moving, and it looked like he was punching me. But I could just feel this pressure. It was like it kept hitting him. It didn't feel pain. It was just a pressure on my pubic bone, and I don't know. I don't remember what I said. I just remember being really still, not wanting to move. I remember looking around the room. I remember looking at all the broken bottles, broken glass. And I remember that it's just not wanting to move because I didn't know if it was broken. I didn't know if the bottle that he had inside me was broken. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel it. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel anything. I didn't want it. I looked around and I saw so much broken glass that I didn't know if he would know. If he would know, I didn't know if he would know if it was broken or not. And I just remember thinking, please, God, please, I hope it's not broken. I don't know how that ended. I don't know how I got off the countertop. I just remember it being in the bathroom. I remember retching. I remember the sound my voice was making. I remember I lost control of my bladder. I remember just retching. I remember there was blood on the floor. I got up at some point. I don't know how that night ended. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember. I have a memory of him begging me not to leave. I remember going outside the front door. I remember him coming out to the front area, but I don't remember if that was before or after this. I don't remember. I just have that memory. I remember taking a bunch of sleeping pills. Not a bunch, like 2, which is a lot for me. I remember falling asleep, or I don't remember falling asleep, but I know I fell asleep because I woke up the next day. I assume it was late morning. I could hear him downstairs. I could hear Marilyn Manson music, not in person. I could hear the music. Maybe he said it was Marilyn, or maybe I could recognize it. I don't remember, but I became aware of it. That's what I was hearing. It was blaring. It became clear, obvious to me when I walked downstairs. He was still up. He hadn't gone to sleep again. I walked downstairs and I saw this brown on the walls going down the stairs. And the brown on the walls became clear, like lettering. And then it was obvious it was dried blood. He had written down this that we had a spiral staircase, like white cream walls. There was blood on the carpet. I could see blood drips. I thought it was from my arms or feet, but it was drips. So that plus the wall writing, I saw this brown letters on the wall, and then realized that he was trying, that it was meant to be a message, but it was incoherent. I saw what looked like my name, but I really couldn't make out most of the rest of the message. Walking down the stairs, I saw a bird in the house. I thought that was surreal. I went down to the main level where my painting studio was, and I had some canvases out. It was in the living room area. And by the time I got down to the bottom of the stairs, the dried blood had been kind of taken over by paint. It was blue, navy blue paint, and then brown paint. And then it was on the walls, on the lampshades, pillowcases of the sofa cushions. There was blood in the painting studio. My canvases have been covered with what looked like just brown, blue, green, red mess. It was just a mess. There was a painting that had, a painting that the owners had that had, like giant penis on it, and some other things. There was a table overturned, a bunch of broken glass on that floor. I walked downstairs where I heard the music coming from, and that's where I found him, blaring this music. He was in the study, which is by the bar games table area off to the side, and it was just glass and blood and a broken window, and just, it looked like a mess. The table was collapsed, and I walked into the study. There was a couple unbroken empty bottles. I remember wondering where they came from. And he just looked, he wasn't there anymore. He wasn't there. It wasn't Johnny. He was standing at the office desk. He had his hand wrapped in this, like, rags, or, bandana rags. And I think he took them down or somehow showed me, and he said, "Look what you made me do. I did this for you," something to that effect. And I kind of put together, it was covered in paint, and I put together that's like he was using his finger. I quickly became aware that that's what he was using as a paintbrush, even though there was lots of paintbrushes around. And we didn't have any sort of like coherent conversation, as you can imagine. I figured out he was missing a finger. He kind of held it up, and I said, "What did you do? When? Like, what did you do? When?" And I realized in my head that there had been many hours since this probably happened, assuming that was happened with the phone. And in any case, I knew it had been way too long, that he had this blood, that he was bleeding, and I said, "I'm going to call 911 if you don't call Jerry now." I still don't recall which of us called Jerry Judge, his security. At some point we went upstairs. He came upstairs, but he went up to the third floor while I was in the main floor, the entry-level floor. I went to make him a cup of coffee because he was demanding more Red Bull. And I was thinking, that's probably not a good idea. I don't know why coffee would be so much better, but in my head it was. I thought maybe, I don't know, sober him up, or I don't know. Help was coming, though, and I remember I made him coffee. As soon as I handed it to him, he threw it at the TV and started screaming again. It was like back to square one. Shortly after that, security arrives. I don't know how long, maybe a few seconds or minutes went by, not long, but they kind of find Johnny, or Johnny finds them walking out of the front door, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And as they were kind of looking at him and trying to figure out what the heck was going on, Johnny took his penis out of his pants and started trying to pee or peeing outside of the house, saying that he had more messages for me. And this is in front of security. And they kind of just like looked at each other and looked at him and kind of not laughed, but kind of half, played it off and corralled him. It was how it looked. It looked like corralling a wild animal back into the house with his penis still out of his pants, peeing or trying to pee. That's what he was indicating. And he went to the wall of the house, and I remember him standing at the wall trying to leave me more, saying he had more information for me. He was gonna leave me more messages, more information for me. It made no sense. And Jerry Judge, his security, and one of the nurses, shortly after, I think they put me in the theater room, but shortly after I remember talking to one of the nurses, and she was trying to give me drugs to sedate
Objection,
me.
Your Honor. Hearsay.
Trying to give her drugs, she
Yeah,
didn't say
overruled
anything.
that.
Thank
Okay.
you. Keep going.
And I just remember crying and rejecting what they were trying to give me and fighting with them about how much they were trying to give me. I felt like I needed to figure out what was happening with my life, what was happening with Johnny. I didn't know if he was okay. I didn't know. I actually had no idea, like, could this be something he could die from? If anything, just the drugs and the alcohol. I mean, that alone, I didn't, I just remember being scared and being in this theater room, this dark theater room, and not knowing what the heck was going on. And I eventually was taken up to my room by one of the nurses, and I'm sorry, Debbie, and or suggesting I go up to my room. I went up to my room, and I took a quarter of what she was trying to get me to take, and I eventually fell asleep. I came back downstairs to look for my phone, which Johnny had picked up before security came in. He picked up my phone and said, "We're going to get to the bottom of this." He wasn't making any sense at the time. Understandably, just different. Nothing made sense. But he picked up my phone and was saying, I'm going to prove this. We're going to get to this. We're going to get to the proof of this. Something to that effect. I don't remember his exact words. And he pushed record on my phone. I didn't actually at the time think that he had done that. I had no idea, but I did know that I didn't have my phone when I woke up and went downstairs to get it. It was dead. It was sitting out on the dining room table by where Jerry Judge was sitting. Jerry Judge was on the phone and talked to me, and I went back up to bed, took more of this sedative, and fell asleep. And then I think the next day went to the closet and took out the clothes that he hadn't painted on. I guess when he went back upstairs, he had just like, it looked like what he had done is dip his hand in a bucket of paint and just wiped it on my clothes. Just went, and he had picked up another portion of my clothes and put them in the bathtub. And I don't know if he added paint or if he just had touched them with paint, but it was this ugly navy blue brown paint. I packed what was packable, what hadn't been destroyed, and eventually left Australia with Ben King, who you met on the way there.
Let me stop you there because I want to ask you some more questions about those 3 days, and then we can talk about Ben King and going home. So, do you recall what bottle Mr. Depp was drinking from and then had that back and forth with you and you threw on the ground?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound leading.
Sustained.
Do you recall what the bottle was?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you recall whether it was wine or liquor?
It was liquor. The wine was upstairs.
Okay. Do you recall what color
Excuse me.
it was?
Well, I believe it was white, clear, but I can't be certain. I think it was clear.
Do you remember whether it had a handle on it or not?
No, it was a normal bottle. I remember because he was holding it like this and gestured to me to take it. And I did try to reach for the bottle. It was a normal size, but for the life of me, I can't remember what brand.
Okay. When you woke up that third morning and came out of your room, what, if any, food did you see?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Overruled.
There was mashed potatoes smeared all over the bedroom door, on the wall, in various places. But I remember opening the door and being really confused at first as to what it was. It had little like specks of green in it, I assumed to be spinach. And throughout the house, there was food rubbed in places, just countertops, walls, doors, as I mentioned. And later that evening, I found the raw meat that I had left out, the steak, all over the house. There were pieces of it. It was cut up. And he had ripped my nightgown into pieces, into shreds, and wrapped the meat up, like wrapped the steak pieces up with my nightgown. It was this really beautiful burgundy silk nightgown that had this black lace trim. I ironically got it from Dr. Kipper for a wedding gift. And it was wrapped, I continued to find it throughout the rest of the time that I was in the house in Australia. There was pieces of it in the microwave, pieces of it in the produce drawer, in the closet drawer. Just raw meat wrapped up in my nightgown, as well as the smeared food on the walls. It was bizarre.
What, if anything, do you recall seeing on any mirrors?
Oh, he had written on the bathroom mirrors in the bedroom, and I believe he had. There was another mirror. I just don't recall which bathroom it was in. I suppose it was the one that I went to, which is on the very bottom level, where I was retching, for lack of a better way to describe it. I think it was in that bathroom that he also wrote on that mirror as well.
What, if anything, do you recall?
In blood and paint, sorry.
I'm sorry. What, if anything, do you recall of any lampshades being written on?
Well, he wrote on messages to me, things to the effect of go-getter, horror sort of thing, like that sort of language. But calling me easy, calling me a slut, calling me, just things about ego and what a whore I was. But it was hard to make sense of it because it was clear he was just out of his mind. It was, he wrote on a back of a pillow in blood. And you can tell because it dries like in this ugly brown color. He wrote on the walls going downstairs. Like it took in fact, you could see where it looked like he had run out of blood because the messages became, the markings became clearly letters. And the letters kind of became, like I could see where he had clearly run out of blood or it wasn't bleeding enough and went and got paint. And then it became paint and blood. You could see both. You could see where he went back with it. Same with the mirrors. I could see where all the dried blood was. And then I could see a different set of markings with paint and some other material.
So I'm going to go back to the time in the bar, and I know this is very painful. Do you recall what Mr. Depp was saying to you when he had the bottle and was pushing it against your pubic bone?
He said that he would fucking kill me. He said, I'll fucking kill you. He said it to me over and over again. He said, I'll fucking kill you.
Did you bleed from the vagina as well?
I did.
And did you experience any pain later?
I wasn't thinking about that. I was heartbroken. Eventually, I realized that I could be hurt because I was bleeding. But I convinced myself it wasn't broken and that the bottle wasn't broken, or else it would be a lot worse. And the discomfort I was feeling afterwards just paled in comparison to how scared, shocked I was. I'm scared. I just married this man. I just married him.
And forgive me for asking this, but I need to just make sure the record's clear. You were penetrated up the vagina into the pubic bone, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Sustained.
What, if any, penetration was there in your vagina with the bottle? I'm so sorry.
Do this.
I am so sorry.
Johnny had the bottle inside of me and was shoving it inside of me over and over again.
Did you experience any cuts on other parts of your body?
My forearms were cut. My bottoms of my feet were sliced up pretty good.
Did you have any other bruising or swelling?
I had a bruise across my jaw, I suppose, from one of the many times he clocked me in the face downstairs. I think I just didn't make a record of anything else.
I'm going to ask you to turn to let's go to 1810. Well, actually, let's go to 1815. Michelle, if you can bring that up. Defendants 1815. And I think these are all in, Your Honor, so if we could publish.
Yes, they can all be published.
Is this the game table?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is this, based on your testimony, is this where you were you on top of this table?
Yeah, that he briefly got on top of me and was pushing on my throat, actually, at some point when I was on the table. I had forgotten about that. And this, though, looks like it is after a lot of the stuff was cleaned up, because it didn't look quite like this.
Okay. And did the table collapse?
Yes, it did.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Sustained.
What, if anything, happened to the table?
The table collapsed underneath me when Johnny threw me into it and got on top of me, or fell on top of me. I honestly don't know which one.
If we could look at 1816, please, defendants. Do you recognize this, what's depicted in this picture?
Yes,
What is it?
it looks like the bottles that were by Johnny on the desk when I came down that last morning, and he was still up, still drinking.
If we could go to defendants 1817.
The bottle shape.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't, I have not,
Go back to 1816, please.
Your Honor,
I had,
confused. Is there a question?
You want to ask a question?
What more do you recall?
you had, sorry, it took me a minute to respond because it's hard. It took me a minute to respond because I had not remembered seeing the bottle that Johnny was using on me. I didn't have a memory of seeing it. And this picture, I wasn't aware of until just the other day, yesterday, the day before. And I felt my stomach tighten up, like I was going to be sick when I saw it. Because even though I didn't remember seeing the bottle, what I had remembered is a pressure, like something square, which is why I thought he was punching me. I was feeling the square, something firm hitting me, like butting up against my pubic bone. Over and over again, I felt that pressure against my bone. It felt like a flat surface. But when I realized it was an object or bottle and not his fist, which is what I thought, because his arm, I could see his arm while he was holding me down, saying he was going to kill me, but I thought he was, his arm looked like he was punching me. And I hadn't seen this bottle. I didn't know. And then this came out in Ben's evidence because he didn't share it until this date.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And so I recognize it.
All right, now let's go to defendants 1817. Do you recognize this area or this picture?
Yes, it looks like one area of the bar. Obviously, this is sometime later because all the liquid is dried up. It was quite slippery. I was slipping all over that tile. That's how I know.
Okay.
Looks like a lot of the glass has been cleaned up almost.
Okay. And then let's go to 1818. Actually, I think
I'm
that's...
sorry, which?
Yeah, I don't have that.
That's
no.
not in evidence.
Yeah, that's a duplicate. Let's go to 1819. My apologies.
Okay.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is this?
This is close to where my feet were when I was dangling off the counter. When